To quickly name the world's tallest hill, you'd likely pick somewhere in Asia or South America, but you'd be mistaken. Oklahoma, surprisingly, holds that title, yet it's far from the only peculiar aspect of this state. Imagine a stretch of land within Oklahoma that operated sans any laws for 4 decades, or a state that logged more earthquakes than California. Then there's the largest public gypsum cave globally, also found here. While Oklahoma often gains a reputation for being flat and rather uninteresting, what we're about to share today will unequivocally challenge that perception. So get ready. We're diving into 50 incredible geographical facts about Oklahoma you've probably never encountered. Fact 50. The Panhandle existed as sovereignless territory. At one point, a section of the United States literally belonged to no one. For approximately 40 years, the Oklahoma Panhandle functioned as a true no-man's land, a 34-mile-wide strip completely devoid of government, law enforcement, or official ownership. Texas relinquished its claim to circumvent slavery policies, and adjacent territories simply didn't want it. Consequently, it remained an unauthorized zone, serving as a sanctuary for outlaws, cattle rustlers, and anyone aiming to vanish. Some ambitious settlers even attempted to establish their own nation, the Cimarron Territory, though it never achieved recognition. For decades, this wasn't merely remote. It was one of the sole places in America where legal authority was genuinely absent. Fact 49. It boasts more artificial lakes than any other state. Oklahoma wasn't naturally destined for such an abundance of water. Presently, the state features over 200 man-made lakes, surpassing all other states in the nation. However, most of these did not exist prior to the 1930s. During the Dust Bowl era, rivers desiccated, farms failed, and water scarcity became a crisis. In response, engineers began constructing dams across the state's rivers. Major lakes such as Texoma, Eufaula, and Keystone were created from the ground up. These reservoirs now mitigate flooding, provide potable water, and foster recreational activities throughout Oklahoma. What was once a parched, unpredictable water system has evolved into one of the country's most extensively engineered aquatic networks. Fact 48. Oklahoma's highest elevation point defies typical expectations for the state. Oklahoma possesses a mountain, which seems distinctly out of place. Black Mesa ascends to 4,973 feet in the far western Panhandle. Geologically, it forms part of the same system that extends through Colorado and New Mexico, situated on the fringe of the Colorado Plateau. This environment starkly contrasts with the typical prairie landscapes people associate with Oklahoma. The terrain here is arid, elevated, and characterized by volcanic rock formations that evoke the Southwest more than the Midwest. Thus, while much of Oklahoma lies flat, this particular corner appears as though it was transplanted from an entirely different region. Fact 47. The world's tallest hill status is a semantic technicality. Oklahoma asserts ownership of the world's tallest hill, though its classification hinges on definition. Kavanaugh Hill, located near Poteau, is publicized as the globe's tallest hill because it measures 1,999 feet from its base to its peak. This height is precisely 1 foot shy of the widely accepted 2,000-foot benchmark conventionally used to classify mountains. The trick here is that no official rule formally distinguishes between hills and mountains. In fact, the U.S. Geological Survey itself refers to it as Kavanaugh Mountain. Its actual elevation exceeds 2,300 feet above sea level, but locals prefer the hill designation to enhance the intriguing nature of the claim. And technically speaking, it holds true, depending on the measurement criteria applied. Fact 46. The Gloss Mountains are not, in fact, mountains. These seemingly mountainous formations owe their existence to a clerical error. The Gloss Mountains emerge from western Oklahoma, but they are, once again, not true mountains. They are rather mesas composed of red rock and gypsum. Their distinctive feature is their surface, which is covered in selenite, a mineral that reflects sunlight, imparting a glass-like sheen to the hills. Early explorers dubbed them the Glass Mountains, yet a typographical error on an 1800s map caused it to be mislabeled as Gloss, and the name persisted. The rock itself formed approximately 250 million years ago when an inland sea submerged this area. Today, it stands as one of the state's most visually striking and unusual locations. Fact 45. Oklahoma is home to 12 distinct ecosystems. This state undergoes a profound transformation depending on your location within it. Oklahoma encompasses 12 unique ecoregions compressed into a relatively confined area, tying it for the most diverse in the entire country. A journey from the southeastern to the northwestern parts of the state will lead you through swamps, pine forests, hardwood hills, prairie, and ultimately arid, desert-like landscapes. Rainfall patterns explain this variability. Eastern Oklahoma can receive over 50 inches annually, whereas the Panhandle typically gets closer to 15 to 20 inches. Same state, yet drastically different environmental conditions. This extensive range supports a vast array of plant and animal life, making it one of the few places in the U.S. where such a profound level of environmental change can be observed without crossing state lines. Fact 44. One county borders 5 separate states. There's a particular spot in Oklahoma where 5 state boundaries converge. Cimarron County, situated in the far northwestern corner, shares borders with Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, and Texas, making it the sole county in the U.S. connected to such a high number of states. It also encompasses numerous triple points, an equally exceptional characteristic. Despite this, the area hosts a remarkably sparse population, with fewer than 2,000 individuals spread across nearly 1,800 square miles. One can readily deduce that this amounts to roughly a single inhabitant per square mile. The county seat, Boise City, is a modest and tranquil community, enveloped by vast expanses of open terrain in all directions. Nocturnal observations reveal almost no illumination from artificial sources. It represents one of the nation's least inhabited and most secluded locales. Fact 43. Oklahoma City ranks among the largest urban centers by landmass. Oklahoma City is considerably more expansive than commonly perceived. Spanning over 600 square miles, it stands as one of the most geographically extensive cities in the United States, surpassing metropolises like New York, 305 square miles, and Los Angeles, 500 square miles. However, its sprawling nature isn't immediately apparent. This is primarily due to decades of territorial annexations during which the city continuously broadened its boundaries. Consequently, certain segments of Oklahoma City present a distinctly urban landscape, while others exude a rural ambiance, featuring undeveloped land and even livestock within municipal limits. It is not unusual to navigate through residential areas only to encounter agricultural fields moments later. The city's immense spread means that traversal from one end to the other can consume far more time than anticipated. Fact 42. Oklahoma emerges as a prominent destination for dinosaur fossils. Portions of Oklahoma were formerly teeming with dinosaurs. Near Black Mesa in the Panhandle, researchers have unearthed considerable quantities of dinosaur fossils, dating back more than 100 million years. This locale once constituted a drastically different ecosystem, sustaining creatures such as long-necked sauropods and armored dinosaurs. Over millennia, sedimentary deposits preserved their remains, transforming the area into a vital paleontological site. Excavations have yielded substantial material, aiding scientists in enhancing their comprehension of prehistoric life in North America. Currently, the landscape appears arid and open, yet it harbors evidence of an era when this region supported entirely distinct ecological systems and significantly larger fauna. Fact 41. The heart of Tornado Alley. This area is one of the most frequently impacted by tornadoes globally. Oklahoma experiences an average of 50 to 70 tornadoes annually, although certain years witness far greater numbers. In 2024, the state documented over 150. The underlying reason is geographical. Warm, humid air originating from the Gulf of Mexico collides with cold, dry air masses descending from the Rocky Mountains. Oklahoma is situated precisely where these atmospheric fronts converge. With no geographical impediments to obstruct these systems, storms can rapidly intensify. On May 3, 1999, the state endured approximately 70 tornadoes within a single day, including one that set a record with wind speeds of 321 miles per hour, the highest ever recorded. In Oklahoma, residential storm shelters are not merely optional provisions. They are considered essential. Fact 40. Oklahoma's topography is anything but uniform. Many individuals envision Oklahoma as a flat expanse of prairie. Yet this portrayal is far from complete. The state actually encompasses 4 distinct mountain ranges: the Arbuckles, Wichitas, Ouachitas, and Ozarks. Indeed, the Ouachita and Ozark regions collectively represent one of the sole major highland systems located between the Rockies and the Appalachians. Essentially, it comprises elevated, forested terrain situated amidst what people commonly assume to be level ground. One can transition from expansive plains to undulating hills and dense woodlands within a matter of hours. Oklahoma's appearance varies significantly across its territory, attributing to its greater geographical diversity than typically acknowledged. Fact 39. The Wichita Mountains boast an age exceeding 500 million years. These peaks predate almost all other visible geological formations in North America. The Wichita Mountains formed approximately 500 million years ago, a result of ancient volcanic activity. This era significantly precedes the dominion of dinosaurs and even the advent of complex terrestrial life. At one point, they attained considerably greater heights, but continuous erosion has sculpted them into the rounded granite formations observed today. What remains are exposed rock outcrops and boulder fields that lend the area a unique appearance compared to the rest of Oklahoma. Mount Scott, a prominent peak, reaches just under 2,500 feet. However, its true significance lies not in its elevation, but in its profound antiquity. Fact 38. Oklahoma lies atop exceptionally ancient geological formations. As hinted by the previous insight, some of the continent's oldest rock strata are found directly beneath Oklahoma. Within the Arbuckle Mountains, a granite core dating back approximately 1.4 billion years exists. Over eons, tectonic forces propelled it nearer to the surface, and erosion subsequently exposed portions of it. Today, what appears to be a tranquil series of hills actually rests upon some of North America's most ancient geological material. Though easily overlooked, this region essentially serves as a portal into the continent's distant past. Fact 37. A single river bears two different names. There is a river in Oklahoma that inexplicably undergoes a name change. In the western part of the state, it is known as the Beaver River, but as it flows eastward, it abruptly transforms into the North Canadian River. Identical water, identical course, simply a different designation. This peculiarity stems from early mapping and settlement periods when various groups assigned different labels, which subsequently persisted. Presently, both names continue to be used, contingent on one's location along its path. The river maintains a single, uninterrupted course for hundreds of miles, despite its varying designations. Oklahoma's largest lake, Lake Eufaula, covering over 100,000 acres, is gradually being diminished by sediment. Soil from upstream erosion washes into the lake, settling on the bottom and steadily decreasing its depth. This buildup accounts for the noticeable murkiness of the water in certain areas. Remedying this would necessitate removing immense quantities of material far beyond what is practically feasible. Consequently, sections of the lake will continue to become shallower over time. This is a protracted process, but it's actively underway, altering the lake year after year. Another fascinating aspect of the state involves a mountain range with an atypical alignment. While most North American mountain ranges trend from north to south, these mountains defy that pattern, running east to west, an extremely uncommon orientation for the continent. Their formation approximately 300 million years ago stemmed from a distinct tectonic event that folded rock in a direction entirely different from ranges such as the Rockies or Appalachians. This unique characteristic is evident to hikers, as ridgelines extend horizontally rather than vertically across topographical maps. It represents one of the few places in the U.S. where the landscape deviates from the usual geographical blueprint, becoming striking once one understands what to observe. Surprisingly, Oklahoma also hosts a desert. Little Sahara State Park in northwestern Oklahoma encompasses 1,600 acres of authentic sand dunes, some reaching heights of 75 feet. This expanse features no red dirt or grass, solely sand. Its origins trace back millennia to the Cimarron River, which deposited vast amounts of sand during floods. Over time, wind sculpted these deposits into dunes. Today, it stands as one of the state's rare locales for sandboarding or dune buggy rides. The striking contrast is what makes it peculiar. Ascending to the summit reveals flat prairie stretching in every direction, yet directly beneath your feet lies a desert environment. Oklahoma's geographical position places it within a zone prone to frequent, intense storm development, particularly during spring and summer. The convergence of warm, moist air from the Gulf, as previously mentioned, with colder air from the west creates the atmospheric instability conducive to powerful thunderstorms. In recent years, certain parts of the state have documented some of the highest lightning densities nationwide, with particular counties experiencing dozens of strikes per square mile annually. This isn't merely a matter of sporadic storms, it's a consistent meteorological pattern directly linked to the state's location amidst major weather systems. Despite lacking a coastline, Oklahoma is susceptible to rainfall levels typically associated with tropical regions. Storm systems originating in the Gulf often migrate inland, unleashing enormous volumes of moisture across the state. While these systems typically aren't full-fledged hurricanes by the time they reach Oklahoma, they are still capable of generating extreme precipitation. For instance, in 1973, a single storm delivered over 15 inches of rain to Enid in a 24-hour period, leading to significant flooding. Such events recur when the precise or adverse conditions align. Coupled with the state's propensity for severe thunderstorms, Oklahoma consequently contends with both inland storm systems and residual tropical moisture. In Oklahoma, storms often bring more than just rain. They can produce enormous hail. The state frequently experiences severe hail events due to powerful updrafts within thunderstorms. These updrafts can suspend ice particles for extended periods, allowing them to grow to an unusual size before falling. In 2011, a hailstone approximately 6 inches across, roughly the size of a grapefruit, was documented near Gotebo. Hail of this magnitude can inflict significant damage on vehicles, shatter windows, and impact anything in its path within minutes. It serves as another illustration of the intense weather phenomena common to this region of the country. There is a significant river in Oklahoma that, remarkably, can completely dry up. The Canadian River traverses hundreds of miles across the area, yet in specific segments, particularly during droughts, its flow can cease entirely. Instead of water, one might observe broad expanses of sand, with only residual small pools remaining. This phenomenon occurs because parts of the river are heavily reliant on rainfall, and upstream water usage diminishes the volume reaching downstream sections. While it retains its classification as a major river, its behavior doesn't consistently reflect that status. For several years, Oklahoma unexpectedly became one of the most seismically active locations in the United States. Prior to 2009, the state typically registered only a couple of perceptible earthquakes annually. However, this situation rapidly shifted. By 2015, Oklahoma recorded hundreds of earthquakes measuring magnitude 3.0 or higher, surpassing California's count that year. The primary cause was linked to wastewater injection from oil and gas operations, which increased subterranean pressure along fault lines. The most significant event, a magnitude 5.8 quake in 2016, resulted in considerable damage across parts of the state. Although subsequent regulations have reduced the frequency of these events, it starkly demonstrated how quickly human activities can influence geological processes. The largest gypsum cave globally accessible to the public is situated in Oklahoma. Alabaster Cavern State Park occupies a substantial gypsum deposit that originated approximately 250 million years ago. Over countless years, water gradually eroded sections of this formation, fashioning vast subterranean chambers. The primary cavern extends for about 3/4 of a mile, characterized by towering ceilings and broad pathways. Gypsum caves are quite uncommon due to the softness of the material, which frequently collapses before extensive systems can form. This particular one endured, explaining its current accessibility. Additionally, it serves as a habitat for various bat species, establishing it as both a geological and ecological point of interest. Fact 27. Wild temperature fluctuations. This state experiences dramatic shifts in temperature. Oklahoma has documented a high of 120 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of -31 degrees Fahrenheit, a contrast exceeding 150 degrees. This extensive range positions it among the states with the most variable temperatures nationwide. Summers can usher in prolonged heat waves, while winters can plunge well below freezing. These extreme changes are driven by the state's geographical placement between diverse air masses with minimal natural barriers to obstruct them. Conditions can change rapidly depending on the season, rendering the weather here less predictable than in numerous other parts of the U.S. Fact 26. One of the state's last undammed rivers. While most rivers in Oklahoma are under dam control, this particular one is noteworthy. The Blue River flows for approximately 140 miles without any significant dams or reservoirs along its entire length. This characteristic designates it as one of the few remaining free-flowing rivers of its magnitude in the area. Consequently, it still supports natural processes such as sediment transport, seasonal flooding, and unimpeded fish migrations. In a state where water systems have been extensively engineered for managing floods and ensuring supply, this river stands as an exception. It provides a clearer understanding of how rivers function without substantial human intervention. Fact 25. Marine fish in Oklahoma's waters. Fish in Oklahoma exist that originated in the ocean. The Blue River is home to American eels, a species that actually spawns in the Atlantic Ocean, specifically within the Sargasso Sea. Following hatching, they drift across the ocean, enter rivers along the East Coast, and eventually navigate through the Mississippi River system into inland waterways like those found in Oklahoma. This migratory journey spans thousands of miles. Most individuals would not anticipate a landlocked state to have such a connection to the ocean, but the river systems facilitate it. It represents one of the more unusual illustrations of how interconnected waterways truly are. Fact 24. A previous tropical sea covered the state. This entire region was once submerged beneath a tropical sea. Roughly 300 million years ago, a substantial portion of what is now Oklahoma was covered by shallow ocean waters. Marine organisms like trilobites and early reef formations thrived in areas that are currently agricultural land and urban centers. Over epochs, sediment from that sea accumulated and eventually transformed into rock strata, such as limestone and shale. This accounts for the widespread occurrence of fossils throughout the state. It also elucidates Oklahoma's energy resources. Oil and natural gas formed from organic matter that was buried and compressed over millions of years. Fact 23. An accidental bombing occurred in an Oklahoma town. A town in Oklahoma was inadvertently bombed by the U.S. military. In 1943, during World War II training exercises, a bomber crew mistakenly targeted Boise City in the Panhandle instead of their assigned practice zone. They released several bombs in the early morning hours. Fortunately, no fatalities occurred. The crew had been navigating at night and confused the town's layout with their intended objective. This remains the sole recorded instance of a U.S. town in the continental states being bombed by its own military during the conflict. Fact 22. Rare black alabaster deposits. One of the most uncommon types of alabaster on Earth is discovered in Oklahoma. Within the alabaster caverns, the majority of the rock is typical white gypsum. But there are also deposits of black alabaster, a material found in only a handful of locations globally. The dark hue results from mineral impurities, imparting a distinctly different appearance compared to standard alabaster. While a minor detail, it holds geological importance. Most caves lack this variation, and it contributes to the site's distinctiveness. It's one of those features that's easily overlooked, yet globally exceptionally rare. Fact 21. Glimpses of the Great Plains' original appearance. portions of Oklahoma still reveal how the Great Plains appeared preceding development. The Tallgrass Prairie Preserve safeguards tens of thousands of acres of native prairie that once enveloped most of the region. Grasses here can reach heights exceeding 6 feet, and the ecosystem is sustained by natural cycles like fire and grazing. Bison have been reintroduced and roam freely throughout the preserve. The majority of the original prairie across the U.S. has been converted to farmland, rendering areas like this scarce. It provides a vivid depiction of what the landscape looked like before large-scale agriculture transformed it. Fact 20. Oklahoma's highest waterfall. Deep within the primordial Arbuckle Mountains, Turner Falls plunges 77 feet into a natural pool, establishing itself as the state's highest cascading water feature. Honey Creek, which originates from perennial natural springs, feeds the falls throughout the year. The sprawling park around it encompasses 1,500 acres of rugged Arbuckle topography. It boasts caverns, formations of natural rock, and a pair of natural swimming holes sculpted over millennia by the descending water. Its geological context makes this cascade all the more extraordinary. The water tumbles over limestone dating back 340 million years, a form of Ordovician rock that represents some of the oldest accessible stone in the area. For a state commonly perceived as uniformly flat, a 77-foot waterfall crashing through rock, almost 500 million years old, is as geologically astonishing as it gets. Fact 19. A single invisible boundary transforms the entire state. An unseen demarcation bisects Oklahoma, the 100th meridian, signifying a dramatic climatic shift. East of this line, the state receives adequate rainfall to sustain agriculture without irrigation. Journey westward, however, and conditions swiftly become considerably arid. Precipitation levels drop significantly, vegetation undergoes changes, and arboreal presence diminishes. This transformation is visually discernible during travel. Grass height, soil coloration, and general topography all alter across a relatively short distance. This boundary stands as one of the most crucial geographical divisions in the United States, and Oklahoma is positioned squarely upon it. Fact 18. Oklahoma's southern edge once served as an international frontier. The Red River wasn't always merely a state demarcation. Before Texas became part of the United States, this river delineated the boundary between the U.S. and Mexico. Standing on one bank meant occupying an entirely different nation. Over time, political maps shifted, yet the river's narrative extends further. Eons ago, it actually took a different course before geological forces redirected its flow. Nowadays, it constitutes Oklahoma's southern boundary. However, its role has transitioned multiple times, from an international border to a state line, while generally following the same path. Fact 17. Oklahoma's landmass surpasses many nations. Oklahoma spans a greater area than most people comprehend. Covering nearly 70,000 square miles, it exceeds the size of several European countries, including Portugal and Austria. It also rivals the land area of places like Ireland. Traversing the state by car requires numerous hours, particularly from its Panhandle to its eastern perimeter. Despite its considerable expanse, it's often geographically overlooked due to its placement among larger, more renowned states. On a global scale, nevertheless, it is far from diminutive, though it rarely receives such recognition. Fact 16. The Ozark Mountains extend into Oklahoma. The Ozark region doesn't conclude in Arkansas. It actually stretches into northeastern Oklahoma, introducing an entirely distinct environment compared to the rest of the state. This territory features undulating hills, limestone formations, pristine rivers, and dense woodlands. The waterways here are frequently spring-fed, maintaining cooler temperatures than surrounding areas, which facilitates activities like trout fishing, uncommon this far south. The topography and geology mirror what you encounter in Missouri and Arkansas, but it receives less attention once it crosses into Oklahoma. Fact 15. Oklahoma possesses an expansive woodland. A portion of Oklahoma bears no resemblance to plains. The Ouachita National Forest spans approximately 1.8 million acres in the state's southeastern sector. It's replete with thick hardwood forests, pine stands, and rolling hills that offer a completely different feel from what most people anticipate here. This region sustains wildlife such as black bears and contains areas of older, even less disturbed forest. It furthermore rests upon one of the oldest mountain systems in the area. Without prior knowledge of your location, you wouldn't immediately surmise you were in Oklahoma. It stands as one of the clearest illustrations of the state's diverse landscapes. Fact 14. Oklahoma's crimson earth holds a distinct meaning. Much of Oklahoma's ground is vividly red, yet this isn't the origin of the state's name. Central Oklahoma is covered in red soil and rock due to iron-rich minerals that oxidize over time. However, the name _4 derives from Choctaw words meaning _5, not the land itself. It was selected in the 1800s to refer to indigenous nations relocated to the region. The color of the earth merely happens to correspond with the name, which often leads to the assumption of a direct connection. It's one of those coincidences that appears intentional despite being purely accidental. Fact 13. A reservoir that never reached capacity. Oklahoma constructed a lake that remains largely devoid of water. Optima Lake, located in the Panhandle, was finished in the late 1970s, but never attained its projected volume. The fundamental issue stemmed from miscalculations. There simply isn't a sufficient consistent water flow in the Beaver River to fill it. In most years, vast sections of the lakebed were dry. What was intended to be a significant reservoir for leisure and water supply transformed into a mostly empty basin. The necessary support systems for the existing infrastructure are simply not present. Topic 12. A major lake shared by two states. Oklahoma shares a significant body of water with Texas, Lake Texoma. Situated directly on the state boundary, it formed when the Red River was dammed. Encompassing tens of thousands of acres, it ranks among the largest reservoirs in the area. Because both states lay claim to it, they share responsibility for its administration, leading to occasional disputes over water distribution. A distinctive characteristic is the presence of striped bass, a species typically found in saline environments that has adapted to the freshwater conditions here. It serves as a prime location for angling and recreation, drawing millions of visitors annually. Topic 11. Oklahoma's lakes are gradually accumulating sediment. The issue isn't limited to Lake Eufaula. Many of Oklahoma's lakes are progressively becoming shallower. Over time, rivers transport silt, earth, and debris into these reservoirs, where it settles on the bottom. This process slowly diminishes their water retention capacity. Lakes such as Overholser and Altus Lugert necessitate continuous upkeep to clear some of this accumulation. But sustaining these efforts long-term proves challenging. Without intervention, these bodies of water would continue to fill up and lose volume. It's a natural occurrence, yet it poses ongoing difficulties for a state that largely depends on engineered water systems. Topic 10. A woodland dividing the state. A narrow band of forest extends across Oklahoma, running north to south. Known as the Cross Timbers, it separates the more humid eastern woodlands from the arid western plains. Early inhabitants described it as incredibly dense, so impenetrable that navigating through it with wagons was virtually impossible. The trees here, primarily post oak and blackjack oak, grow in a manner that creates a thick, almost impenetrable barrier. Its uniqueness stems from the fact that this forest type is specific to this area and parts of Texas. It effectively forms a natural boundary that influenced human movement across the state. Topic 9. Elk were successfully reintroduced after local extinction. Elk had vanished entirely from Oklahoma. By the close of the 19th century, hunting had eradicated them from the region. Then, in 1911, a small group, just a few animals, was brought back to the Wichita Mountains. That population gradually expanded, and today, over 1,000 elk inhabit the area. This stands as one of the state's most successful wildlife reintroduction efforts, illustrating how quickly a species can rebound given suitable conditions. Topic 8. Oklahoma is home to wild alligators, not pets or escapees, but actual breeding populations in its southeastern region. Rivers like the Red River and Little River offer optimal conditions, particularly in swampy zones near places such as Broken Bow. This marks the northernmost extent of their habitat, meaning winters cause them to slow down. They survive by entering a dormant state in the mud. Most individuals don't associate Oklahoma with alligators, which is why this fact often surprises them. While generally smaller than those found in Louisiana, they are very real and firmly established within the ecosystem. Topic 7. Swamps exist in Oklahoma. A portion of Oklahoma bears a striking resemblance to the Deep South. In the southeastern corner, particularly around McCurtain County, you'll uncover marshy expanses dotted with bald cypress trees and slow-moving waterways. This area sustains species unexpected so far inland, including, as previously mentioned, alligators. The environment is more humid, warmer, and wetter than the rest of the state. It represents a distinct ecosystem compared to the plains or prairie regions commonly associated with Oklahoma. Topic 6. Oklahoma boasts hundreds of caverns. Approximately 800 caves have been documented across Oklahoma, predominantly formed in limestone and gypsum. Over extended periods, water dissolves these rocks, creating subterranean networks. Some are expansive and accessible, such as alabaster caverns, while others are smaller and harder to reach. Many of these caves serve as vital habitats for bats and other creatures. Some also contain evidence of early human habitation. While not a typical association for Oklahoma, the geological composition supports their presence in several areas throughout the state. Topic 5. Towns lie submerged beneath Oklahoma's lakes. Entire communities rest under some of Oklahoma's artificial lakes. When reservoirs like Lake Texoma were established in the 1940s, valleys were inundated, including small settlements, buildings, and cemeteries. For the most part, they remain concealed beneath the water. However, during periods of drought, when water levels recede, portions of these towns resurface. Foundations, roadways, and even old structures can become visible once more. It serves as a reminder that many of these lakes were not always present. They were constructed over places where people once resided. The landscape didn't transform naturally. It was reshaped, and fragments of that history endure. Topic 4. rainfall patterns shift rapidly across the state. Oklahoma's precipitation levels can vary significantly depending on the specific location. In the eastern reaches of the state, annual precipitation can surpass 50 inches, fostering dense woodlands and lush plant life. Yet, heading westward, that figure plummets to less than 20 inches in certain localities. This dramatic alteration takes place over a comparatively short distance, influencing everything from farming practices to natural habitats. A drive across the state vividly displays this transformation. Trees become sparser, grasses grow shorter, and the surroundings become notably arid. Oklahoma is situated directly on a significant climatic divide, and this boundary dictates the appearance and operation of the whole state. Fact 3. Subterranean gases and liquids can emerge from the earth. In specific areas of Oklahoma, the ground expels natural gas and saline water. These emanations might manifest as effervescent puddles where methane and brackish solution ascend to the surface. They typically result from former oil and gas operations where subsurface pressure accumulates and escapes through established conduits. Although not a universal occurrence, it is observed in particular territories. On occasion, the gas can even ignite if exposed to fire. This represents one of the more peculiar repercussions of the state's extensive involvement in energy extraction. Fact 2. A body of water was constructed for flood mitigation. A principal lake in Oklahoma exists predominantly to avert inundation. Keystone Lake was forged by constructing a dam on the Arkansas River, partly in response to significant flooding incidents in Tulsa. Prior to the dam's existence, the river was prone to sudden surges, causing considerable destruction. The artificial lake now retains surplus water during heavy downpours and releases it at a more controlled pace. While currently utilized for leisure activities, its main function remains flood prevention. It serves as a prime illustration of how engineering interventions have been employed to manage the region's natural hydrological systems. Fact 1. Oklahoma experienced a synchronous statewide tremor. There was a period when the entirety of the state appeared to vibrate in unison. In 2019, detection equipment registered repetitive seismic oscillations throughout Oklahoma at consistent intervals. This didn't align with a typical earthquake pattern, initially causing bewilderment. Investigators subsequently linked it to scheduled detonations at a military installation. Given the appropriate atmospheric and geological conditions, the tremors propagated much further than anticipated, generating a synchronized signal across a broad expanse. It was sufficiently out of the ordinary to gain statewide notice, demonstrating how specific occurrences can manifest quite differently depending on their environment. How about 50 bewildering Mississippi geography facts?